You and I have talked privately about
It's the
John
problem.
McCain. No, but I want to ask you a question because I
Mhm.
think this is important. The Republican Party doesn't have any more John McCains.
No.
Like leave the Democratic Party aside in their fecklessness. But John McCain, God bless the man's memory. God bless his moral turpitude. God bless his ability to stand up in front of an entire country and take his POW ridden arms and post thumbs down that day he voted against his dear leader, who he did not buy into all the time. And I know, listen, your Mondays with Liza are like mandatory watching. Everybody, if you don't subscribe to Steve or Ryan Liza, tell us you have to. You guys talk about the Democrats, inability to do anything for the American people because they're still so institutionalized. But I push back and I look at the Republican side of this. There is no John McCain in the Republican Party. And because there is no John McCain in the Republican Party, because Mitt Romney has effectively been clipped, and because no one really gives a shit about anything on the GOP side of this equation other than keeping their black car and their stipends and their expense accounts, you have literally an army of willing assholes who will do anything that Donald Trump wants them to do. And I would question that. I would pose that to you. Where are the John McCains of this world in this party? Someone that, you ran his campaign, someone that you respect, someone that, you take an unbiased look at John McCain, and it doesn't matter who you voted for. That fucking guy's an American hero who stood up for the virtues of what America should be, who stood up to Vladimir Putin, called it a fucking gas station. Russia called it a gas station. And I would ask you that question is that what has Trump, been so effective at rooting out any kind of, you know, character from the Republican Party because we don't have any more John McCains. And that to me is a fucking travesty.
Look, if I went to Bhutan like later this evening and hiked up to the monastery,
By the way, I
right?
wouldn't doubt if you went to Bhutan later this
Right.
evening.
Like this is like what I'm gonna contemplate, right? And I'm not trying to so it's a very deeply personal question to me at one level, or I take it that way. Um because I can't separate the intellectual side of it from the personal side. And I was having this conversation, and I never talk about kind of conversations, with friends. I don't think I'm going to get in trouble, but I was talking to Nicole Wallace, who's a very, very dear friend of mine, and
She's great.
has been since we were kids, right? Since we were in our 20s. And we met working in California politics in the California legislature. And I grew up in New Jersey. Nicole grew up in California, and we were moderate Republicans, right? We were part of a tradition of moderate republicanism. But that tradition was the majority of the country, right? Ronald Reagan was elected with 49 states in 1984. It was a broad coalition. Every person that I ever worked with, ever, right? And I work closely with Liz Cheney in a campaign, right? So Liz is there. But almost every person I've ever known, on the day that Donald Trump came down the escalator, we all had the same position. Everybody was repulsed by him.
Mhm.
But 10 years later, not having moved a fucking inch from the original position and having been proven correct that what comes next is A, And what comes next is B after A on a 10-year basis as we've come so far down this river, right? Why was there such moral cowardice? Why was there such capitulation? It was some level, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Mhm.
That fear is a powerful motivation. This notion that in a taker society, I'm going to get mine, and there's no cause greater than self-interest, really, which was the antithesis of what McCain believed in. What he talked about all the time was that the greatest part of living is to be part of a cause greater than yourself,
Mhm.
right? But the thing is, for me, because I didn't step off the line, I didn't get in line, right? And I'm not blind to the fact that I'm in an incredibly small number of people who operated at the highest level of the Republican Party and Republican politics who did not get in line with this,
Didn't bend a knee.
and
Yeah.
did not bend a knee, will not bend a knee, no matter what, right? And it's brought a lot of threats and a lot of abuse. I had to move out of my house because of the threats and the danger that was unleashed by the insanity. But what John McCain, more than anything else, he was a defiant guy, right? He was the worst of the worst prisoners in prison, right? Like, I mean, after they tortured him, beat him, they throw him in the cell and ask him if he had anything else to say, and you give him two middle fingers and say, fuck you, right? And this is a moment where you got to be defiant. And there's a lot of people that are very afraid, but you have an absolute right to speak out. It's not seditious to call Trump a fascist. It's accurate,
Mhm.
right? And so, what you realize, right, when you look back for real and what happened in World War II, most people collaborated. Right? Resistance was a small number of people, right? And in the end, I you look at some of the people that I know that have made different decisions than I've made, right? That are buying third homes, second homes, giant boats. Not for me.
Mm.
Um, I I think that there are some things that you can't get in line behind, and all of this stuff is one of those things. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning. I invite you to join this community where I promise to be honest, blunt, and direct about what is happening in this country. America is in crisis. Follow and subscribe to this channel and on Substack. Thank you.